What's up everyone, Darcblade here with a patch information video for Overwatch. This is regarding a patch that has numerous numbers attached to it. For the PC, for example, it's patch 1.5, whilst on the PlayStation, it's update 2.0. With that in mind, I'm just going to refer to it as the Sombra patch. The patch was released on the 15th of November for all systems. This includes PC, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Now what does this patch include? Well, the highlights for the patch include, the introduction of the brand new hero, Sombra. She is an offensive hero, and I'm sure with all the hype surrounding her, you may have heard of her by now. She is designed as a hacker, and thus specialises in nullifying other heroes, as well as denying different areas of the map to the enemy team. Unfortunately, it seems that she isn't a huge powerhouse of a damage dealer, but these are early days, and I'm sure as time goes on people will know how to use her, as well as find new tactics and combinations for this intriguing new addition to Overwatch. Next is the arcade. Gone is the brawl. Instead we are given the arcade, which combines numerous, for lack of a better word, party modes. These include one-on-one duels, 3v3 skirmishes, no limit matches, as well as all the brawls that have been previously featured in the Overwatch brawl option. As some of the duels and skirmishes are quite small, they've also introduced a new map, Echo Point Antarctica, which is related to May's backstory. The map is small, so you will only see it during these game modes, unfortunately. Next, Blizzard are preparing the way for the competitive Season 3. On November 23rd, Season 2 will end, during which there will be an off week, during which competitive points won't be able to be gained or anything. You can still play competitive, but there will be no rewards as such. However, Season 3 will then commence on November the 30th. Blizzard have also said that they've made adjustments to the skill rating system for Season 3, and thus players will be distributed more broadly across the skill tiers, which means more than likely you may be in a lower tier than you are at the moment. Now moving on to just the general updates that came with this patch. Firstly, they've added PlayStation 4 Pro support for those of you who play on PS4. Next, they made a number of data format improvements which should decrease load times and reduce the game's storage space requirements. They've also made several adjustments to the amount of experience needed to level up. The amount of experience needed to reach levels 2 through to 13 remain unchanged. However, the amount of experience needed to reach levels 14 through to 100 has been slightly reduced. The amount of experience needed to reach levels after 100 is now a constant 2000 XP and will no longer reset after each promotion. So before this change, once you hit 101, any level after that would be quickly achieved, thus giving you access to a host of easy loot boxes. This is now changed, unfortunately. Next, quick play matches are now restricted to one of each hero per team, pretty much how it is in competitive. Some people don't like this change whilst others do. Personally, I am in the camp that actually likes this change, as coming across troll teams and that was frustrating. And finally, with the general changes, the number of observer slots in the custom game has been increased from 6 to 12. Now, moving on to the big part of this patch, and the juicy thing that everyone wants to hear, the hero balance changes, what came through, who has been buffed, who has been nerfed and such. Firstly, the general balance changes. This is to all heroes. Firstly, damage dealing to things other than players, like Torbjorn's turret for example, no longer charge players' ultimate abilities. And next, a big one that's going to change the game quite a bit, ultimate costs have been increased by 25% for every single hero in the game. This is more than likely to make the game less dependent on ultimates and more on the individual heroes' abilities and weaponry. Ultimates will still play a big part, but they will be just more valuable. Next, moving on to the individual heroes. Firstly, Ana, her nano boost. This no longer increases the movement speed of the target who has been nano boosted. This is going to make things very different and maybe even difficult for Ana. Before, she could nano boost a Reinhardt or a Reaper and they could just fly in and wipe out an enemy team. Now, there are probably going to be more optimal nano boost targets who we didn't even consider, like Soldier. But time will tell how this works out, as I'm sure players will soon work out different combinations and who is best to nano boost now. Next, moving on to D.Va. Firstly, her core mech. This is calling her mech when she's in baby D.Va form, outside of her mech The ultimate cost has been decreased by 20%. This is probably to counteract the nerf to ultimate costs across the board. Next, the mech's health has increased from 200, which was formerly 100, whilst its armor remains at 400. This makes D.Va, alongside Roadhog, one of the strongest tank heroes in terms of health. And finally, her movement speed while firing has been increased by 25%. Next, moving on to Lucio, he unfortunately has received a bit of a nerf. His Amp It Up ability, the healing per second when this is activated, has been decreased by 10%. This reduces his overall healing output, unfortunately. Next, with Mei, her Blizzard ultimate cost has been increased by 15%. Mei was unfortunately one of the characters who was able to charge her ultimate quite quickly. This 15% on top of the 25% means that this should no longer be the case. Next, moving on to Mercy, her passive health regeneration now activates when Mercy avoids taking damage for 1 second instead of 3 seconds. This gives Mercy a lot more survivability. It also means that I have to go back and quickly put a note on my Mercy guide about this change. Next, moving on to Pharah. Pharah's rocket launcher, the minimum explosion damage has been increased by 13%, whilst at the same time the minimum explosion knockback has been decreased to 0%. This means her rockets won't knock you back as much, but will deal more damage if the rocket's blast radius should just clip you. Next, her jump jets. This is her passive ability. The lift has been increased by 35%. With this in mind, a skilled Pharah player can now use this to pretty much stay airborne indefinitely. This is going to make things really interesting in the long run. Next, moving on to Soldier 76. His pulse rifle, his main weapon, the bullet damage has been increased from 17 to 20, whilst at the same time the maximum bullet spread has increased from 2.2 to 2.4. This is going to make Soldier far more dangerous. He's going to be far more viable in competitive matches, even in the esports scene. Next, moving on to Torbjorn. His scrap is now automatically generated over time. He can still collect scrap from fallen bodies, but the amount has been decreased by 40%. This means that he can potentially provide armor packs to the team without putting himself in too much risk. Next, his Forge Hammer. The swing speed has been increased by 25%, but the damage has decreased by 27%. This means that the hammer shouldn't deal too much damage to enemy players, but at the same time, because the swing speed has been increased, it means that he'll be able to build his turret a lot quicker, meaning that he can be a bit more mobile even with it, as he's allowed to get into positions and set up the turret a lot quicker than before. Next, moving on to Widowmaker. Firstly, her Venom Mine. The explosion no longer damages the player who placed the mine. This, I'm sad to say, I have been killed by my own Venom Mine before accidentally. This should no longer happen. Next, her Widow's Kiss, which is her main weapon. The charge rate has been increased by 20%. When it says charge rate, it means that when you're scoped in, you'll see the charge of the rifle's power going up quicker than prior to this patch. And finally, moving on to Zarya. Her particle barrier and her projected barrier both have been nerfed. The power gained from these barriers has been decreased by 20%. This means that she shouldn't lose any survivability, but at the same time she won't be getting the energy and dealing lots of damage as quick as prior to this patch. So that's basically the highlights and the best bits of the Sombra patch. There were a few user interface updates and bug fixes here and there that have minimum impact on the game. If you're at all interested in reading these bug fixes, I'll leave a link down in the description below where you can check out the full patch notes from Blizzard. So, what do you think of this patch? Are you excited about Sombra? It's going to be hard to get used to her at the moment because a lot of people are going to be playing her, and it's going to be difficult to get into an organised team and see how she works efficiently. It's going to be a while before we actually figure out her pros and cons, as well as make a guide on her. Personally, with this patch, I'm excited that they've added the Oni Genji skin, which for those of you who don't know, is acquired by playing Heroes of the Storm with a friend. Heroes of the Storm is another Blizzard game. But anyway, leave a comment down below and tell me what you think. And until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you a patch information video regarding the Sombra patch on Overwatch. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.